Hi guys, Frank here with Build Your Own, and this is my 1994 Chevy Cheyenne C1500 with the 4.3 liter V6 engine. In the last video, I replaced the water pump, and when I was doing that, the radiator started leaking. So in this video, we're going to remove and replace the radiator in my truck. Okay, so I got a replacement radiator from AutoZone. I wanted to get one of those fancy aluminum ones, but they're super expensive, so I just have a stock replacement radiator for my 4.3. I also have these are the little plastic grommets that fit on top of the radiator and the ones that fit on the bottom that it rests on. I figured I'd get some of these brand new, and I got these from LMC Truck. I'm also going to use this fender mat for the first time, so that way when I'm leaning over the truck, I don't have to scratch up my paint. Even though the paint does have scratches on it, you have to admit I have a really good shiny paint job on this truck. I've put a lot of work into making this original paint look as great as it can, and so no, I don't want to ruin it when I'm working on the truck. So I've got this new fender gripper, this new fender mat. They also have ones for the front, and if I would have known that, I would have got one to put across the front, but I'll just move this mat around so when I lean on it, I don't have to scratch up anything with my clothes or anything like that. So really the first step of removing the radiator for me is to remove this top shroud, which I've already got off. I left it off from the water pump job. The new water pump is installed on the truck there, and the leak started happening on this radiator. Let's take a look down here. We can see that the radiator is just all wet down here, and if we take a look, it's actually still leaking. We can still see that the radiator is leaking, and so I don't have a lower radiator shroud on the truck, which I guess makes it easy for me. You may or may not have that lower radiator shroud as well, so that's already off for me. I needed to take off the top radiator shroud. There should be some clips that hold this radiator like so, and I did order those from LMC Truck along with a new coolant reservoir tank, but I need to get my truck back on the road, so that'll just have to be another video. So yeah, there's not many pieces holding this radiator in. Actually, it is this top shroud that is holding this fan, or that's holding the radiator in actually, but it is really secure though, definitely. So with the shrouds out of the way, the only thing really left to do, if you're doing this job yourself and taking it from start, is to drain the radiator. And there is a drain hose, there is a drain plug, I should say, right over here, and I'm going to turn that drain plug in a minute, but I want to get a bucket under that. Obviously there's still a little coolant in this radiator because it's still leaking, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this drain plug, and I'm going to also remove the lower radiator hose just to make sure everything drains out, as much fluid comes out of this radiator as possible. Okay, so everything's basically drained out of the truck, and I didn't mention it before, but the top radiator shroud, there's these three 8mm screws that holds that top shroud in, and of course the lower radiator shroud has its own screws you're gonna have to deal with. So the radiator drain plug, you know, you just turn that, and I drained all that out, and then I went ahead here and removed the lower radiator hose. I got a bucket under that, caught all that, so I think it's done dripping. I've got the radiator hose turned up just so we can hold that fluid in there. There's still some coolant in there, and hopefully that hose stays put. And so now the only thing really left to do is to remove these hoses. We got the transmission lines, there's two of those here, and then there's the line that goes to the hose that goes down through the firewall into the heater core. This is that hose there, and then this hose here is the hose that goes to the coolant reservoir. So all we really need to do is just remove all of these, and then we're good to go, and then we can take the radiator out of the truck. Okay, so we've got everything removed from the radiator, the connection that goes to the reservoir tank. I wasn't really able to get that clip loose, but it was able to slide off anyway, so I'll have to deal with opening that clip in a minute when we get ready to reinstall that. This clip was easy enough. I just put a plier on it. These transmission lines, this is a 13mm. This is 13mm. You're going to use an open-end socket to do this one, and the one at the bottom. When I did the one at the bottom, a little bit of transmission fluid did come out from the bottom hole. Other than that, that was it. And that hose flipped back, as we can see, but it didn't splash on me, and it all went right in the bucket. So good deal there. So everything's removed. Now we can literally, well, we gotta actually remove the upper radiator hose. I forgot about that. So once we remove the upper radiator hose, now we could take the radiator out of the truck. So I've got the old radiator out of the truck. I probably don't need to tell you which radiator it is. This radiator looks like it's been through the mill. I mean, it looks like it's original equipment. It may or may not be, I don't know, but I can tell that the replacement radiator is definitely an exact fit. That's super cool. So now all we really need to do is put the new one in the truck and hook those lines back up. I think before we put the new radiator in, I think I'll go ahead and clean up this whole area, vacuum it, clean it down, wipe it all up, and then I'll install these new rubber grommets that are right down here. Here's one of them right here. I'll install these new rubber grommets. This one's definitely old and tired, so I'm glad I got new ones. Okay, so I got the space where the radiator sits cleaned up a lot better. I mean, obviously I could probably take a power washer to this to really get it correct, but it's fine. I've got one of these rubber grommets already installed over there. The second one I need to install, and if you see at the bottom down here, they got these little locators down here, so you can't really mess it up. And on this one here, it's just this one right there. So we just get that hole lined up in there, and you can actually feel that thing coming right through here. Okay, so all the hoses are connected back up and clamped down nice and tight. The only thing left to do now, because it secures the top half of my radiator, is I'm gonna go ahead and put that shroud back on the truck. Okay, so the shroud's installed, everything's buckled back up. All I need to do now is really remove this plug and fill this radiator back up, start the truck. Surely when I start the truck, a lot of that fluid will get sucked back down, so I'll probably have to top this off for a few, but let's go ahead and initially fill up this radiator. Okay, so I've got 3 gallons of coolant because I know that's how much the system can hold. Obviously there's still coolant in the system, but I wanted to make sure that I had more than enough coolant, so I'm going to go ahead and top up the radiator now. Okay, so I've got the radiator topped up with coolant. I started the truck. So far I see no leaks under the radiator, under the truck. I know there's one leak that I still think is happening at the back of the engine, unrelated to the radiator. The radiator seems fine. I took a look down here at the water pump. So far it looks bone dry. The real test is to go out and drive it around, see how it goes, all that kind of stuff, and then check the coolant level again and top it back off. So that's how we replaced the radiator in a 1994 Chevy C1500. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. I'm going to go ahead and take the truck out for a drive and see how it does. It's been many days since I've driven the truck, and I'm anxious to drive it. I do love this truck.